niches. So let's talk about them briefly. Not bank. I thought it was a probate question. All right. So there are 3 niches in real estate, and only 3. There is probate, there is divorce, and there is distressed property. Distressed properties are anything that are greater than 31 days at 5 p.m. delinquent. I am a former asset manager, so let me give you some historical data dating back to when I got into the business in 1988. That's dating myself. When people miss 3 payments, 8 out of 10 aren't going to make another payment again. Forget all the loan mods, forget the bankruptcies, forget everything you know. It's just a historical fact. 8 out of 10 people will be selling their house at some point. The only question is whether or not you'll be helping them. So that means that if I know that means that I can turn marketing into a mathematical certainty that I get a listing. That's the reason you're here, and that's the next part of this call for everybody who's listening. Let's talk distressed properties. First, I will give my experiences for the past week. Why is it, David, it's always the house with the boat in the driveway? Why? For those that don't understand, let me explain. There are 3 parts to monster marketing. One is pulling the data, making a list. The second is actually going out and putting up the monster marketing piece, the proprietary and tested, amazing marketing piece that David and I both still can't really believe was such a low-hanging idea that I'm surprised nobody else ever came up with the idea, David. I swear to God, 8 years in, how am I the only one who came up with this? And last but not least, conversion. And we'll talk about those, and we'll take questions from all of the people who are on the live webinar. So go ahead and load up your questions. My experiences from the past week, I went out and retagged some of my old houses, and I updated some. My part for our group, there are 3 people in my group. I go and put out marketing. Second person is our front door person, and the third person is our closer. So we got 1 listing this week. They were ready to go on first appointment, and it was pretty straightforward. I mean, they have some imaginary numbers in their mind, but I'm going to say, David, in your world, that's pretty close to a slam dunk if they're down to, I need this number.
Yeah. I mean, well, once they start talking about that, they're ready to go. I mean, at the end of the day, most people go through this stress problem. They go, what are the 5 levels of grief?
Right.
And then they finally get to they go through whatever the roller coaster of emotions that people go through, and they get to the end of it, which is really acceptance. And then once they start to get mentally in acceptance, then we can have a conversation with them about how they're going to transition out, and everything else is just fine print. Yeah. And the reality is what they want and, what they can get are not always the same thing. What they need and versus what they want are not always the same thing. And at the end of the day, our job is really to do the best we can under the pressure that we have to get it done prior to a foreclosure date. So, so whether or not there's a foreclosure date has a lot to do with how much cash we're going to be able to extract out of the walls of that house for the homeowner. So obviously, the faster we have to sell it, the less cash there's going to be for the homeowner, but the more convenience and the more time we have, the more traditional marketing we can do to figure that out. So, it gets pretty simple after that. Rule number 1 is get control of the deal. Rule number 2 is figure out how you're going to get paid.
There you go. I think that's pretty straightforward. And we will be taking questions on that topic. If you have any questions, just go to honish.com. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know how to make it any easier for you. Get the monster, install it into your life, and start getting guaranteed listings. First question from the coaching group, Gloria Gadet. Hi. Most NODs are filing VKs in my areas. What do I do? So when you're pulling data, I assume you're removing bankruptcies from your data list, David, but have you seen any uptick in bankruptcy activity, or is it about the same for you right now?
It's about the same.
Huh.
Bankruptcy is about the same. It still works. People don't like to do it, but sometimes that's really the only option. And, and what we're finding is banks who are completely unreasonable and they won't positive. What we find is that when you start offering resistance, the banks don't want to fight. So then they go from, we're not going to consider you to, okay, I see you're not going to go away inexpensively, so let's just try this once.
There you go. Bob Dockman, as you probably know, RealtyTrack has now become Adam Data. Can you walk us through Adam Data? I've said this before. I have a relationship with Darren Blomquist, who is a longtime friend to us and wonderful supporter of projects here with our group. I know that they've switched over to Adam Data. I'll be happy to get them on for a coaching call for the new Adam Data. David, what are you using? Property Radar currently?
I am using Property Radar, yes.
There you go. Depending on where you are in the country, I'll explain this for non-Monster users. Defaulted information is free, okay? It should be able to be gotten. Ooh, that sounds really bad English-wise. You should be able to get the information from a title rep, but certain states, much like ours in California, find it a RESPA violation to take anything of value from a title rep, so we don't get donuts and stuff. I'm still very angry about the donuts, and it's been years, David. Years. So I will see what I can do about getting Adam Data on one of these calls. Regina, how do I handle overlapping appointments with the call center? Well, my recommendation, Regina, would be, so the process, I'll explain the process. So you put up the Monster Marketing label, the call goes in, call center says, hi, Regina wants to come over and talk about your loan mod and alternatives to foreclosure. That's approximately what the call center says. And then they schedule an appointment and then start to try to capture information. That's for you non-Monster users. That's how this works. They're permission-based appointments. Okay. So with that said, that's a good question. You need to clearly define what the periods of times are that you can take calls. What do you do when you have overlapping appointments for your guys, David?
Well, we are doing 4-hour windows, so it's right. Really hard to do. So we don't really have an overlapping issue. So we have the call center say that they say come Saturday at 1 p.m. and we tell them we'll be there within 2 hours of that. So that means 11 to 3. So we generally work it out.
There you go. Daniel Rodriguez. What do you do when a tenant calls the sticker? Good question, David. What do you do if a tenant calls on the sticker?
Well, the call center saying it's got to speak directly to the homeowner. So when we realize that a tenant is calling the sticker, then we try to get the homeowner contact information and call the homeowner directly.
There you go. Joe Melendez, is there a sweet spot to stay under when tagging homes, price of homes? It is my experience that the easiest conversions are those that are median to low median. That isn't to say that we haven't, I've tagged a bunch of multi-million-dollar houses lately, like ridiculous houses in the area. But my experience on those that convert the easiest are median to lower end median, blue collar people. I think if I could add a filter and I could remove one factor from pulling up data, I would love to pull people who've gone to college because they just feel that they know everything about real estate. That's just me personally. David, you're more of a high end area. What's your experience?
Well, first of all, we tag everything, right. Okay? We don't discriminate on pricing, so I want to be clear about that. But response rate does go down when we get into the higher price ranges. So once we get over $1 million, and the reason for that is that people that are more affluent have a tendency to have more professional relationships with lawyers and realtors and those kind of things. So the response rate is lower. But that doesn't discourage us because they pay better when we do get through. So I don't need as many responses when we have success.
There you go. Bob, for David, I'm in a right of redemption state with 3 months to 1 year right of redemption. Should I wait for the foreclosure date before Should I wait for a foreclosure date before tagging?
No,
No.
I wouldn't do that. I mean, the bottom line is that you're having a conversation with the owner about selling their house. They sell the house and cure the loan. There's no redemption. So you're still, you want to get to the homeowner and try to help them from going into foreclosure in the first place. And then if they go into foreclosure, then it's, what the bank is going to do. Does that mean they foreclose and the seller gets to stay there for 3 years without making any more money? So we're trying to help people avoid foreclosure, not the other way around. And generally, if they don't have them, if they couldn't keep it out of foreclosure, they don't have the cash or resources to get it out of foreclosure. And so the eviction is going to begin. So a much cleaner transition is to sell the house and pay off the mortgage or settle it, the short sale.
There you go. Donald, David, do you call on bankruptcy listings? If not, why? I find that sooner or later they will list. Thoughts?
We don't. I skip the bankruptcy listings. We actually filter them out and Follow Up Boss and Property Radar. And we do that because almost 100% of the time the response is we got it handled. And they first of all, they don't have the urgency. And number two, they got a lawyer representing them in almost every case. And we find that it's just not fruitful.
There you go. And Donald, so are you saying when you do meet with a tenant, you ask them if they want to buy a house? That's from Donald Ross as well.
Do I? No. I mean, no. I mean, well, I'm not going to the door, so. But no, I wouldn't ask them if they want to buy a house. I want to be very careful to upset the homeowner. I mean, the tenant may be learning something about the house that the owner didn't want them to know, and that's not my place to communicate.
And can I make another big pitch right here for all of you, having been out and putting up tags again? Please use repealable labels. For those that are just thinking of diving back into using the monster, please use repealable, removable labels. I can't stress it enough. It's very disheartening when I go to another area and check on data or go to put up tags where somebody said that data doesn't work, and the first thing I see in that area is half of a permanent label stuck to somebody's garage door or their front door. Of course they're going to be pissed off. Nobody's going to call you if you're using a permanent label. Trust me when I say this. They're just not. It's horrible. It is a problem. It is a horrible, 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 horrible problem. All right. That's all the questions. You guys are out of questions for this week. That was pretty quick and painless. I have been somebody asked this question earlier. I tag in batches, and I do it in between usually jiu-jitsu and my doctor's office visits. Yes, and that's a real thing. David knows because I send him photos now from the doctor's office as I'm in traction part of the week. So I like to go out for a couple hours at a time because it's just too hot. I think if you do more than that each day as an individual, you're going to just burn out. What do you mean, Donald Ross, mailing addresses? That's all you wrote, mailing addresses. No golf for Lee. It's not that I can't golf, it's that I don't have a right shoulder currently from jiu-jitsu. It's just dumb, and David's trying to talk me out of it, and he's failing as well. Ask the owners for the mailing address. Oh, ask the owners for the mailing. Look, again, I don't know if I would ever get... I'll say it again. I don't know why you guys aren't filtering your data to just do owner occupied. That's